Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining us, hanging out, having a couple of beers, and some conversation. We're going to have a good time with it this week. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how's it going?
Not too bad. Not too bad. How you doing?
I'm good. I was just looking at my camera. Y'all give me a sec. I feel too big.
You are a little big in the camera.
big.
I just realized. Yeah.
I feel
You're getting
big
larger,
here.
Tim, and larger.
I'm going, my, let's see. Can I use the slider here? No, my controls have broken on me and they're going the wrong way. But
extreme close-up time.
We'll get it all figured out. Maybe I'll just do this show. In close-up. I believe my software may have frozen. But this is good. This is the best we're going to do. I'll step back a little bit and get into the mic, and I'll quit rambling so we actually get into the show. Overall, I'm good. Good. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that very much. Nate, how are you doing, sir?
Doing all right. It's midway through the week at the time of this recording, and I am exhausted. So just trying to survive this week and,
make it
midway through the week.
Make it. Remember, we post this as a podcast, so we like to give the illusion that it's like the weekend or something. We lie, basically, is what I'm saying there. Okay.
I'm so well rested right now. Oh my God.
So well rested.
Yeah.
This weekend
I slept in so much for this weekend.
Has been great. Yes. Patrick Doyle said objects may be closer than they appear. They're way too close. I'm sorry for being all up in your faces. In my camera software, when I press to zoom down, every time I press that, it clicks up. And when I click the up, it just does nothing. So unless I want to start everything over, I'm just going to have to be in your faces this week for those watching the live stream. But anyhow, enough about my video problems there. Guys, we did some beer festing last weekend. We went out, Little Beer Fest, one of our favorite events that we go to. Went out and had that. Weather was nice, overcast all day, minor drizzles. But we actually set a record in the Atlanta area that day for pollen count, the highest pollen count ever. And there was a time we were sitting on like this little brick wall, just chatting and having some beers. And I had my cell phone out and I laid it down on the brick wall, maybe a minute, but I picked it up and I'm like, why is my screen dusty? And I realized it was pollen there in just one minute. And I saw that the pollen count, I don't remember if it was either 14,801 or 18,401. Both of those are ridiculously high numbers, so it doesn't matter which one of those two it is. But I heard that represents the number of particles of pollen in a cubic meter of airspace. So that's what you got there in that little, I guess that'd be a 3x3 cube, right?
Yeah.
3.3, somewhere along those
something
lines.
like that. If you've seen the picture of, and they come out every year around this time of somebody cutting the tree down, and when it goes down, there's just like a yellow cloud that lingers behind it. It's like that. Like, it's not as intense as that, but it's pretty close because we are surrounded by trees that are dumping that volume of pollen, every second. So
why we stay so green over here. Yeah. Well, guys, what were your favorite beers at the fest? Nate, what'd you enjoy there?
There was a brewery that I don't remember the name of. I'm going to try and do some sleuthing real quick. But they had a West Coast IPA that was not within the guidelines of counted as a little beer, but I was actually pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed it a lot.
Are you talking about the Wayfinder, the winged creatures? That's okay. That's on my list too. Yeah.
And then from Seeds Brewing, Seeds with a Z, not the seed. Seeds Brewing had a table beer called Little Z that was nice and light and tart, and that one was just pleasant. And I wound up getting my glass refilled there 3 or 4 times, enjoying that beer.
For what it's worth, if it says anything about the beers, you and I have the same 2 favorites. Those were going to be the 2 that I mentioned. I really enjoyed that. And for those that have been listening for a while, you know that I'm not a fan of West Coast IPAs. But this one, it wasn't very bitter. It was more is there an old style now? Is there a vintage West Coast IPA? Because this one was like dank and grapefruity, which I don't feel like a lot of them have been done that way in a long time. So it wasn't super bitter, but a lot of dank and grapefruit to it, which I dig. I enjoy that.
I mean, that's arguably is what the West Coast is supposed to be. Everything that's not that is kind of some strange reimagining of what it is now. It's these days people call things a West Coast IPA, and that might just be a clear version of New England IPA. I'm like, we have all the same flavor in there. We just made it clear. I'm like, that's not it. But
well, we went through the IBU wars, early 2010s, I guess it would have been probably
late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah. And I think that probably put the West Coast as like bitter. That's it. West Coast is bitter. And, I remember back then I'd actually forgotten about the dank and grapefruity West Coast IPAs until I tried that one from Wayfinder again. So that was really good. And yeah, Nate, I'm with you. That Little Z, that table beer, it was very a good funk to it, but not super sour, which I dig in those kind of beers. Give me some funk, give me some character to it. Slight tartness is fine, but that was just all around just a really, really nice beer. Brian, what were your standouts?
Without a doubt, the Seeds Little Z was my favorite there. I hung out there and tried their other couple of beers. They had one I tasted. It had chamomile in it. It was a nice, clean table beer. It was fine. I can't drink it because immediately after drinking a little of it, a little twinge of a headache. Tingle. Chamomile does that to me. Also, there was the 14,000 count pollen thing going on at the same time, so that probably didn't help. But
yeah, gotcha.
I agree with you on that Wayfinder IPA. That was a really good one. I had a Barrique Grisette. I love Grisettes. That I don't think they ever do a bad beer. I love that a great deal. I was very excited to drink Sacred Profane's Light and Dark. Those are the two beers that they make, and so I got that. There was also a Gravity keg of what was that? I think it was a dry Irish stout. All of this stuff is kind of running together. That was also very well done. So there was a lot of really good, interesting stuff there. But yeah, without a doubt, the Seeds Little Z was my favorite thing. I got that 3 times, and that means I was just hanging out at that table for a minute, off to the side. But yeah, that was good stuff. I really like that.
I believe it was Salud Cerveceria did the Michelada beer. And I had that last year at the festival. It was less Michelada-y to me this year, but not that one. For me, I could have definitely taken some more Michelada notes in there, but I think it did better as shining as a beer with Michelada, as a Michelada beer rather than a true Michelada. I think the way they did it this year.
Did you get it with the candy? Because there was a little like rainbow strip of candy, I think, that came with it.
No, I missed the candy, man. I didn't see that. But you know what? We've got some chatter here on the IPAs, and that's Tyler says he thought grapefruit came along later in the IPA evolution. And Patrick says 2000s West Coast were like resinous pine trees.
Oh, yeah.
From his recollection. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I think Nate, I'm having to read Nate's text here but to chime in for Nate, he said he remembers like grapefruit sculpin coming around 2017. So that would have been post IBU wars, or maybe the tail end or middle of there, somewhere in that range.
That was the hotness. That was just before things went hazy, and there was still
right.
People were looking for. Then. I don't think people knew what they were looking for, but they wanted something fruitier. And when we're talking about this, it kind of makes me think the problem beer has right now, craft beer does, is it used to be how bitter can you go, and then it was how sour can you go with the sour beers,
how sour,
or how funky can you go, and then it became how juicy can you go. We don't have a new question. We don't have
juicy, how crispy.
Maybe
are we in the how crispy stage of life?
We are
right
in the
now?
How crispy can you go? I think that's where we're at right now, and it's a little less exciting to the people that like the juicy stuff and one of the other extremes. So it's extreme drinkability. How drinkable can you go?
I believe my palate had forgotten about like the dank grapefruit and like Patrick said, the resinous pine.
For sure.
It just there because as a blanket statement, I don't care for West Coast IPA or bitter IPAs. What was defined as that, but like kind of resinous and piney is pretty tasty. And the dank and grapefruity is definitely, quite tasty. So,
well, and Tim, I seem to remember on Saturday, you at the festival, you had tried something and you described it as smelling dank. Was that the winged
That's
creature?
the one. That's the Wayfinder.
That was the one.
That's
yeah,
the Wayfinder.
It definitely had
And
some
that's-
dankness to it.
Unless you count the 30 seconds that terpene beers were trending, the dank kind of fell out of favor quite a few years ago. And then, you had your Hemperors and what was it? G13?
G13 is still a thing, though.
I know it's still a thing. I just don't think that anyone cares much anymore no one's chasing Hemperor or G13 that much.
They're not extending that line much these days.
Yeah.
Like, I think they had one that was a mango version of it, Mango Kush or whatever, that I think might technically still be a thing. But for a while, they had like 3 or 4 different variations on it. They were kind of workshopping to see if they could turn them into proper beers. And people seemed to be into it for a minute, and then they weren't. And then they were done.
So we also had a How Boozy stage, I think. Like with big stouts and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Probably.
We should do a timeline. So we had a How Boozy, How Bitter, How Dank, How Juicy,
How sour,
and maybe How Crispy is where we are right
It could be How Crispy. I think that really is, because people are talking about how crisp everything is. Everybody's focusing on that crispness and the refreshing qualities of it. So
what about How Lactose, How Milky? It felt like milkshake IPA and milk stouts.
How milky?
Oh, the smoothie. We have a whole smoothie.
The smoothie era. So How Milky may be a good one there.
Yeah.
That might be a good.
How thick? How thick can you go?
With 2 C's.
That's what it was. Yes, that's right. It's with 2 C's.
Yeah.
How thick?
How thick can you go? Man, we've had some moments. What's after How Crispy, guys? Any predictions?
See, I don't know, but I hope it's something exciting, because I think that'll bring people back. I don't know.
I hope it's beer. I hope it stays beer. Like
stay beer. Stay beer.
How barley, how I don't know. How
maybe it's gonna be How Flat Can You Go? It's gonna be cask in like good in or
How British.
Yeah, or
How Noble, maybe.
Like just bags of lambic, like still lambic. Everything will be still. Like how flat
still
can you go?
Yeah. Tyler said it could be How Expensive. So maybe How Spendy, How Pricey.
That's a really good point. I don't like this trend because I can't afford to play that game. Like, the way that it might go these days. Yeah,
I didn't think about, and we're talking 2 decades here, right?
Roughly,
of these different phases, probably early aughts to today. So probably 20 years or so that we're going through here.
Mid 2000s was definitely like, how crazy can you go? How wild, how extreme can you go? That was the Dogfish Head thing. It was extreme. Like, can we take things to the extreme,
Definitely some overlap in these eras. Yeah. We go back to the 90s, how mid can you go? Because I think that was
yes. How malty can you go with everything?
How mid? How unattenuated can you go? Just so many great 90s trends there. Yeah. Guys, we're past it, but I figured it'd be kind of fun to talk about some of the April Fool's gags. Everybody, we were talking at the day job about April Fool's, and that's one of our executives said, well, does anybody do pranks or anything? Does anybody do that? And we're all like, no. We talked about some stuff we did as kids, and it sounds, I think that's kind of it. April Fool's Day is great for kids and marketing teams. I think those are the two groups that benefit the most from April Fool's Day. And we've seen a few. I saw one, I think it may have been a bit older one, but it was the self-filling beer can, like the can brews its own beer and then refills itself, was one.
That'd be great.
And I think, Nate, you mentioned one that was talking about the all foam beer.
Yep.
But the thing with that is, a Milko pour, like, that's a thing. So I'm not sure. And I've seen one in years past where people do an April Fool's joke about a beer. And I'm like, well, actually, somebody's brewed that. So were there any others that you guys saw this year or other years that stuck out to you?
I was amused by how for 1 year there was everybody came out with the same gag about pickle beers. And it was like, guys, that exists. There are some of them out there. Nobody did it this year, but I think I did appreciate Sweetwater made an attempt on this called they had a release of a new beer called IP Green, which was an IPA with I guess heavy on asparagus additives, so the aroma would be really enjoyable. I guess that's not really the right word for it.
It'd be very aromatic.
Yeah, very aromatic, and yeah, I saw that on social media. I'm like, yeah, I can smell it already. That's wonderful. So they did a good job with the art too. It was believable. If you didn't look into it, you're like, oh yeah, all right, it's fine. You didn't notice it's just IP green. It's not IPA green or anything like that. So
those are the good ones when, like, a good April Fool's joke is like you fall for it. It's something, because a lot of times they try and do them to be just outlandish, but doing one that people are like, oh wow, a little bit of shock and surprise, but believable. Those are hard to pull off.
I had to read it, but All About Beer had a post that was about the change in the Great American Beer Festival, like the big changes for 2025, and it didn't say what it was. So I started reading into it, and it was, they. It didn't take too long for me to figure it out, but they said that the entire festival had changed to being, because we knew everybody just wants to hang out at Bierstadt Lager House. So we're just moving it into the basement of Bierstadt Lager House.
Heck yeah.
And that's the whole that was the whole thing. And then the American the Great American what is it? What's the homebrew
Great American Beer Festival?
No, the homebrew festival that they have.
Craft
I think I separated off. Yeah.
Or in NHC.
Yeah. So
National
anyway,
Homebrewers Competition.
They also wrote that had been replaced by a guy wearing socks and flip flops and handing out pamphlets. So they talked about replacing.
I know that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So they talked about replacing both of those. For a minute, I was reading that. I'm like, oh, you got me. Okay, I get what's going on here. That was a pretty good one. I'm like, you know what? That's kind of amusing. At the link at the end, it was all very serious. It was it was almost believable, and of course the link goes to an April Fool's thing. But the other thing that I saw that I was really amused by and enjoyed watching was Jägermeister. Did you see that? The Jäger wash?
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah, so they basically came out with a like a body wash that's good for everything, but as you're watching it, they start cleaning everything with it. You have to see it. It's actually pretty well done. It's good production values. It's pretty amusing. So yeah,
stuff, man.
Jägermeister body wash basically. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
I mean, herbal, stuff, right? Licorice herbal, that who knows, man. I mean, Brian, me and you being into colognes, I don't know. There would be people that would be down with that, no doubt.
I would consider buying it if it were a real
niche, thing. A very niche, and the people that like colognes that smell like hot trash call them challenging scents, advanced, challenging. Those are the words.
Advanced and challenging.
That's what Jägermeister would be.
Will definitely be advanced and challenging. I'm sure there are people that will smell it because there's so many people out there that have the story about a certain alcohol they can't drink, and even smelling it makes them a little sick. You'd walk around with that, and you would be able to tell who those people were that got really wrecked with the Jägermeister when they're young. They'd be like,
Good stuff, man. I tell you what, let's talk about our beers of the week, and then Brian is going to give us the latest, at least as we know it, of this show taping tariff updates. So, Brian, what are your beers of the week?
Yeah, so I got into, speaking of West Coast IPAs, I got into Halfway Crooks Cash, which is a West Coast inspired IPA, is what they're calling it. It was good. I was sitting there thinking about trying to figure out what it was in there that I was getting that I really liked, and there was a little bit of dankness to it, but it was a grapefruit peel, and it was like I haven't tasted like grapefruit peel as a flavor in an IPA in a while, so that was good, and it was clear. Like, it came out, it's from the East Coast. So I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Is this unfiltered? Is there going to be a little, crystal clear. And now I am on to Other Half's Green Flowers. And I'm going to note that this is also a double dry hop West Coast IPA. It is not clear. It is, it's got some haze to it.
A little bit of haze there, a little bit of haze.
Drinking it, yes, I see that it's not super juicy. It's not super sweet. It's not any of those things. It does taste West Coast IPA, but it also looks like a hazy. So, it's fine. It's fine. It's not quite right, but it's fine. I like Other Half, so I'm not going to hold it against them. And after the show or later on, if I have, if I get to it, Monday night's Drafty Kilt Scotch Ale. You were talking about drinking one of those the other day, and I realized I still had one like knocking around. I'm like, I'm going to get into that. So that's what I am drinking tonight.
Good stuff. Nate, what's on deck for you, sir?
So I was going to run 2 beers, and then Party Nate said he was going to be out of the house, so I just dropped it down to 1 beer. So tonight I've got from Parish Brewing Company their Techno Snowman, which is a double New England IPA. This is something that is just really enjoyable. I've liked every single IPA I've ever had from Parish, so I wasn't too shocked to find out that I also enjoy this one.
Yeah, makes sense. Parish does good work. I am sipping from Halfway Crooks their Ada, and that is an unfiltered German Pilsner. And it's fantastic. I mean, I just really enjoy their beers. I would say that this one probably does not qualify for the how crispy trend. It's not super, super crisp. There's a little body to this one, a little bit going on, saying, I mean, unfiltered. I know a lot of craft beers are unfiltered, but I think more so maybe when you get to the Pilsners and such that they may, take them through a centrifuge or something like that to get them a little bit, but not this one. And it does have a little more body to it.
I think that's a great beer. I picked up a few more. Actually, Nate picked them up for me when he was down there last. And if I'm down there and I have a chance, I always look to see in their cooler if they've got some. I keep hoping that's one that's going to actually make it into distribution. I see a little bit of their stuff around, but not much. And I've never seen Ada, so that's brewery only. But I love it, and I'll always get it if it's there. So
yeah, worth the trip. Sure enough. Brian, what do you know? What is the latest that you know on the tariff situation?
So it doesn't sound like it's a huge difference to me, but people are talking about it as though it is significant. And I'm not 100% sure on the technicalities, but as we're recording this, today is the announcement day of all the stuff going into effect. And, it's the Trump administration is moving forward with a 25% tariff on all aluminum cans, I guess, from everywhere, and both with beer and without. And some people are reporting, or some places I looked at are reporting that they are specifically targeting import beer, and it may be even import beer that comes in other forms other than aluminum cans. So it's somehow tied to aluminum, but it makes it sound like that might just be import beers, period, are now getting hit with a across the board 25% tariff. So that's interesting. I don't know, because different stories wrote it different ways. And
I believe you're correct, Brian. I actually think that's been around for like imported goods, just bottom line, imported goods. So I don't know if the thing I don't know is if the ones specifically on aluminum, because they've been making a big deal about that, are different, or if there was some kind of agreement there because I know, I mean, we're just getting tariffed everywhere.
Yeah. So that, I mean, honestly, the 25%, like, I think that's what they talked about before, but you know how the news is. They've got to report the thing again, like it's new news, to get you to read and click on their stuff. So I don't know, but it sounds like, yes, the 25% that we're expecting to hit us in terms of beer is going to hit us as of the recording of this, so you never know. A lot of times at the last minute, things change, but Trump is also planning to sign an executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on any country that tariffs a U.S. product. So I think the idea is, if we become aware of a tariff on our product, that would automatically place the same tariff on that product from them. I think that's the way I think I understand that to be. Again, I'm not an expert on these things, but that could affect a lot of stuff. I just don't even know.
Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I don't know how I think I'm going to say what you were going to say. I don't know how you implement that. I don't know how you can be aware of it, but there are a lot of people that monitor these things. Maybe there's people that know and just keep an up to date list on all the tariffs we've gotten.
That's not what I was going to say. Mine was going to be, I don't see how this will end well for us at all. I don't see any way. And I know the thing is you tariff others and it encourages people to buy American goods, but all of our darn American goods, it will take years for the cycle to go through, the growing cycle, whatever you want to call it. But let's see how the next few years go for all.
We'll see if this succeeds in fast tracking stuff.
We better start brewing again, Brian. Brewing.
Probably
get me a little garden going in the backyard.
That's right. That this might turn out well for people that it kind of dropped out or weren't interested in starting breweries. Maybe that'll be where it's at. We'll have a huge influx of people interested in buying local beer.
let's see. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, in short, a lot of this sounds like it was pretty similar to what he'd been talking about right along. It's just being reported again in kind of, exciting terms.
It's
because
happening
it is
now, so.
currently happening. Before it was speculated. The reciprocal thing, and I don't know what the executive order is because I don't know that he'd actually signed it. So they'd already talked about reciprocal stuff. I don't know. I don't know what form it's going to take. If it's going to be an automatic type of thing, if something exists, then we do the same thing, reciprocally, or if it's just going to be, I am going to look through a list of things I know about and sign all these in. No idea. So that's basically what I got. It looks like the tariffs that we were expecting or we'd heard about going into place will go into place, and we'll just see what happens. I think a lot of people don't expect these to last a very long time. Either they will work in achieving something or they won't work, and then there will maybe be retooling or reconsideration from. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they'll just go into effect and this is the new normal. I don't know.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see.
That's my update.
All right. What fun all of this is. Oh, yes. Brian, I think a couple of big pieces of news this week. Some acquisitions, some big brewery acquisitions out there, big names. Yes. So you want to update us on actually, you know what? Hold up. Before we do that, Brian, okay. How about we give a shout out to our sponsor?
Oh yeah, we could do that. That is not a bad idea.
There we go. So let's do that.
Yeah.
And while you're getting that ready, we did Little Beer Fest is on the Green in Duluth, Georgia, where one of Truck and Tap's locations is. And so we got a chance to drop in there on Saturday, have some beers. Brian, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but they had Jenny Cream Ale on draft.
I did see that. There. And you know what? Yeah. I'm actually wearing a Jenny Cream.
Got a Jenny shirt on. All right.
I am. Yeah. They frequently have it on draft. I've noticed that. I've even recommended it a few times. But like you were saying last week, we were at a beer festival in the outdoors with a bunch of refreshing low ABV beers, and man, it was a great time. But unfortunately, Little Beer Fest is fading in the rearview mirror. We're getting away from it now. But you know what? You can have your own Little Beer Fest at your local Truck and Tap. Heck, you might even see some of the beers we enjoyed last weekend on tap there. So let's see what's pouring, and I'll make some recommendations. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I am going with Notch Kolsch, which I believe was in fact pouring at Little Beer Fest last week. I don't know if I had that one, but it did have a beer or two from Notch. I'm a big fan of Kolsch, and it's not every day you can enjoy a beer from Notch here in Georgia. They don't actually officially distribute here, but some of it was brought in specifically for the event, and I think that's what's happening there. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Patience and Fortitude from Wild East Brewing Company. It's a crisp, traditional Bohemian Pilsner with rustic crackery malt, light grainy sweetness, and gentle herbal spiciness from Saz hops. It sounds beautiful, and I don't know anything about Wild East Brewing Company, so that's reason enough for me to get some of their beer. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Monday Night's 404 Light Lager, which is a craft light lager brewed for maximum refreshing crushability. It has a very specific ABV of 4.04%, which I appreciate. You have to enjoy that precision. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location.
That's Atlanta area code, Brian. Throwing that out there because a lot of people may not know that. So
it is also an HTTP result when you don't find your web page.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm amused by that too. I love that those two things came together, and that was never a plan. I don't believe. Somehow seems appropriate, but anyway. So finally, over at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Moody Tongue's Grisette. It's a style that was very well represented at the festival last weekend. I had a few that I really enjoyed. I looked for them. It's just an easy drinking farmhouse ale with enough character to keep it interesting. So a big part of a beer fest like Little Beer is enjoying some great craft beer outdoors. Truck and Tap is a great spot for that. There's always a patio waiting for you at Truck and Tap. And beyond that, their Woodstock location has a special entertainment district that allows you to grab a beer from a window right on the sidewalk. You can wander all around the downtown area. It's hip and happening. You can just hang out in a bench if you want and do some people watching. And, over at the Alpharetta location, they've got the overproof rum bar on the roof. It's not exactly a low ABV situation there, but you're drinking on the roof. Like, that's fun. And they'll probably let you bring your your Pilsner up there or your Grisette or whatever you have. So check the weather because you never know here in Atlanta, and check the Truck and Tap website, truckandtap.com, to see what's pouring. Then head to your local Truck and Tap to drink in the outdoors and some great craft beer. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap. You know, something we don't mention, Brian, because they're not like official quote unquote Truck and Tap locations, but Truck and Tap does have a couple other bars as well. And
yes.
They have the bar at the Asian food court at Truist Park where the Braves play. At Feast, the Taps at Feast. And then actually at the premium outlet malls up near me here, they're called the Atlanta Premium Outlets, but they're actually 25 miles north of Atlanta.
Yes.
But they have the outlet bar there. So, you know, between the 4 locations and the 4 locations of Truck and Tap, and that's 6 locations in the Atlanta metro area for your drinking pleasure.
Yeah, that's a good point. I seriously forget about those, but Taps at Feast is great. The other one, I don't know if I've had a chance to actually drink at the other one yet.
I haven't drank at the other one. I of course I see it like if I go there to the outlet mall for anything, but you know, I think normally the time that I go to the mall, I'm more a man on a mission, like I'm there to get something. So it's not really a hanging out and having a beer kind of day or time. One day we'll go to the mall for beers.
That is a smart spot because there's going to be somebody there or a lot of people there that are somebody else has a mission. And they need a place to, I don't know, weather the storm or whatever.
Yep. No. I'll go hang out and watch the game on the TV and have a beer or two. It'll work out well. Well, Brian, as mentioned, some big acquisitions this week. And what is the scoop? Who's been acquired?
Yeah, so the first one is Great Divide. They have been acquired by Wilding Brands, a Colorado-based beverage alcohol platform, in quotes. That's a term that gets thrown away with these kind of things a lot. But Wilding Brands formed a year ago, and they already own Stem Ciders, Howdy Beer, Denver Beer Company, and some other properties that Denver Beer Company owns or subsidiaries or whatever's going on there. There's a lot to that. Cerveceria Colorado, Formation Brewing, Funkworks, and a few other brands are not related to alcohol, including, I think, a pizza company. So they kind of sound like an up-and-coming kind of Tilray type of situation here. There's been a few of these. So the deal includes Great Divide's 6 tap rooms located in various Denver neighborhoods and suburbs, as well as the Denver International Airport. The production for Great Divide is moving to Wilding's Canworks facility in Denver. The future of Great Divide's current production facilities are unclear at this point. Also unclear is the existing partnership between Great Divide and Dry Dock Brewing. Great Divide took over production of Dry Dock's beers and RTD cocktails at some point in the past, and I believe we mentioned that partnership in a story last year about breweries teaming up to achieve greater efficiencies and cut costs, that sort of thing. So that's a really interesting thing. Like, if your partner gets bought out and you're not, like, what do you do? I mean, you're making my beer. Are you still doing it? My guess is there's going to be some sort of a transitional process, or who knows, maybe the other place will get bought out too. So the combined production of Great Divide, Denver Beer Company, and Funkworks would place them in the top 60 largest regional craft breweries in the U.S. And a big part of the sale, I think, is that Great Divide sales have been declining since their peak in 2015. So like 10 years of like pretty much declining sales, which is kind of sad, but I mean, I kind of get it. You know, they were super hot. They were they did the Yeti, all the Yeti variants, and that used to be the hottest thing. Like 2012, 2013, it was all about. Maybe 2011. Like, oh, did you get that new Yeti? Oh, look for that Yeti. It's, you know, and somehow
the Yeti in years, Brian.
Yeah, somehow they just kind of disappear. I've seen a few, and I've had a few, but man, they are not nearly as exciting as they once were. You know.
When I was out, I was last out in Denver, I think 2014 or 2015, and went to the Great Divide Ballroom. They put on an event. It was during GABF, and they put on a media event out there. And I mean, it's fantastic. Huge space. I mean, just massive there with all of their barrel aged stuff. So we got to try, you know, those kind of things are always fun. They pull beer from a barrel. They're like, hey, let's see, you know, this one's about ready to get bottled. This is, you know, this is Yeti, or hey, this is a Yeti that we're agent extra long on so-and-so. And, you know, just really put on a cool event there. So it's a bummer, man, to see these that were, you know, the glory days are past. You know, a lot of breweries that were really hitting heavy. Here locally, we've got a few that at one time they were the hottest breweries and literally closed now. So
seriously, yes.
Yeah.
It's hard to even believe it. Yeah, it's weird thinking about them being so tied to all the excitement when I was really getting into everything craft. Like you felt the excitement. People talked about it. People were excited for it. People were looking for it.
Yeah.
They were chasing trucks, and to have them just kind of quietly being sold, just weird, surreal. But
yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to kind of lead into this one. This other one, Brian, we'd kind of heard rumblings about this. Anderson Valley had been talked about being sold or considering that. Interesting, though. I think it may have been 2 years ago now that we had Anderson Valley on the show, and they were talking about how they were a family business, family owned, this and that. And so things change.
Long haul.
And industries change here. So what's the details on Anderson Valley?
Yeah. So Anderson Valley's changed hands quite a few times over the years, but this is the second time in more than 5 years, or a little more than 5 years. The brewery had an asking price of $7.9 million, but the final sale price was not disclosed. And there's reason to believe that maybe the arrangement worked out ideally, so maybe the price wasn't quite that high just because how it worked out. But the new owner is Jason McDonnell, a wine industry entrepreneur that owns a successful winery in the area, which is part of what makes me think this might be, it worked out just right. And maybe there was some concessions on the final price. I'm just speculating here, but his plan is to attempt to replicate the success he's had with his winery and do that with the brewery, with an apparent focus on being more of an event-centric venue. He will oversee the upcoming Anderson Valley Beer Festival in May, which is something I know was a kind of a sticking point with selling the brewery. They wanted that to carry on. That's what I recall from previous articles and rumors about what was going on. He also plans to add his existing bougie sparkling wine and new sake brand to Anderson Valley's holdings or offerings, excuse me. And so I guess we're going to see Anderson Valley sake at some point in the future, which is going to be interesting. All existing Anderson Valley staff members will be retained by the new owner, and the former CEO, Kevin McGee, will assist with the transition, but I guess he's out at this point. Like that sale is done and over with, and he's just helping out. But all that together, maintaining the event, keeping all the staff members makes me think that he may have found a perfect buyer, and maybe they didn't get the full $7.9 million, but maybe he got an acceptable, offer that made things happen. We don't know. There's no way of telling.
Obviously, got an acceptable offer, right? If they made it happen there. So, kind of related, Brian. Some local news here. This is a sale from a while ago, but we're just seeing some changes now. So at Truist Park, Terrapin had a brew pub there, and if you guys remember, Terrapin was one of our show sponsors recently. Yep. And actually, right as we were coming up to renew the sponsorship, is when Tilray purchased them. So it just kind of threw a curveball into that. But there was some new branding on the brew pub lately, and it is now a Blue Moon Brewery and Grill. And I was on Facebook earlier today, and they updated all the cover photos and all that. And of course, the sentiment from many people is, this is so sad. What a bummer to see Terrapin go and all this. But a little silver lining, at least in my opinion. I saw one of the ribbon cutting video that they did, and our buddy Mark Crouch was there for the ribbon cutting. So,
that's good.
That would mean, those guys were employees of Miller-Coors. So if the brewery was sold, they were still Miller employees, I guess. And so it sounds like, or it definitely looked like from that video, that at least Mark is still on with the organization. I'd heard through the rumor mill that they were keeping the brewers. And although right now the beer list is Blue Moon, Miller Lite, that kind of thing, that apparently there has been some chatter that there is going to be some fun, like experimental stuff and that they're going to be able to do there as well. So, hey, I miss Terrapin not being there. There are buddies. We've known them for, we knew Spike from many, many, many years ago as the brewery grew up in Athens and when they opened there at Truist Park. So, we got a little connection there, but it does sound like, even though this is now a Blue Moon place, but at least a few of our friends are still going to be involved, and they may get to do some fun stuff. And we know those guys do some really good beers because we tried quite a few of the pilot batches they did for Terrapin. So if they have the same kind of freedoms with the Blue Moon place, they'll still have some fun stuff on tap.
Before, when I thought that everybody had been just cut, I had no interest in going there. I would go back there if I know Mark's going to be there.
I'll go there if they're there.
And
sure.
I was of the opinion, I'm like, you have a Blue Moon tap room. I'm like, how many taps do you have? Like one? Because I don't know what you need.
There's Sunset Wheat too, isn't there? Isn't that a Blue Moon? So they could have two whole taps, Brian.
Mm-hmm. Maybe were there variants, or am I thinking about like what's the other one? The Shock Top. Shock Top's the one that had all the variants.
Oh, that a pretzel one and everything.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Blue Moon. Yeah, I think you're right. Blue Moon had a variant or two, so maybe they have two taps. But if they're doing some other stuff there, I'll stop in. I'll like knowing the people is enough for me to go in. Otherwise, that's not. It wouldn't be an attraction for me at all.
You know what? I'll be honest, man. Blue Moon's not a bad beer, and it's a great transitional beer. A lot of people have transitioned into craft by discovering something like Blue Moon. My saltiness is purely related to Terrapin having that's it. And of course, with Miller-Coors owning the rights at Truist Park for beverages, for alcoholic beverages there, it just, they weren't going to stick around. And sure enough, Blue Moon Brewery and Grill, Truist Park. So there, for the baseball fans that do a little traveling for games this year, if you're a Blue Moon fan, great news for you, because now they have a brew pub at Truist Park.
Well, there are still plenty of fans out there.
Sure, man. It
does still sell really well. So it's,
to be honest with the general public at a baseball stadium, Blue Moon is probably going to be more recognizable and exciting to the average person visiting the ballpark. So there will probably be plenty of people that will be excited to see their favorite beer has a brew pub at Truist Park. So, hey, as long as our buddies are there. Now, look, Miller-Coors, if any of our friends leave, you cut any of our friends, we're done with you. Yeah. You can take that. And you don't want that from the beer guys.
That's right. You don't want our boycott.
You don't need that karma.
You want that on your conscience?
So I'll have to hit up Mark. I have to get in touch with Mark and see what's going on, see if we can go visit him and kind of get an idea of what's happening.
See if he's going to dry hop any wit beers.
Yeah. Some Blue Moon variants there.
Exactly.
See what they can do. Have fun with it. Well, Brian, this kind of sounds like it could have been part of an April Fool's joke, but it looks like it's not, that a man has invented a self-cooling beer can.
Yeah, I believe that the article was on Newsweek and it dropped a day or two before April Fool's. So I believe this is legitimate. Man, I really hope it is. But according to Newsweek, James Weiss, a 31-year-old former bartender and self-taught inventor, has developed what he claims is the world's first commercially viable self-cooling can. According to the article, he's already in talks with heavy hitters like Coca-Cola, Red Bull, AB InBev, and Coors about the invention. The idea behind it is creating a portable solution. I think this makes sense to everybody, for keeping beverages cold that doesn't rely on power-hungry refrigeration units. So they're expensive to use. They take up a lot of space, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So looking for something else. He's calling it the Cool Can, and it looks like it's about 500 milliliters in size, though it only holds about 350 milliliters of drinkable liquid due to the insulated inner cavity of the can. So that's a little, I think it's like 11 point something ounces. This is like a 12-ounce bottle, effectively, in a much larger thing. So how it works, when a button on the base is pressed in the can, water is released into the surrounding wall where it reacts with a coolant chemical inside to rapidly chill the can within 2 minutes. So there have been previous attempts at something like this. Back in the 2010s, there was Chill Can. Maybe you heard about that. They tried and failed to create a similar device using pressurized carbon dioxide. This is different. The Cool Can is a simpler and cheaper solution. It is estimated to only add a few cents to the price of a drink, though I don't know. That seems like maybe that's exaggerating it a bit, but it avoids the use of polluting gases as well, which is part of the focus of it. It'll probably be a while before you actually see these Cool Cans on shelves, because the Vice is, and that's the inventor, is still finalizing his partnerships with drink manufacturers, and he's planning some regional pilot programs. But I also have to wonder, as this will be an aluminum can, we've got tariffs. I don't know how that's going to affect the future of this invention, this innovation.
It's going to be tariffed.
I wonder if people will have to license it and then produce it in the U.S. to actually use it, because otherwise, are you going to import it from maybe that's what'll happen. He'll license it and it'll be made in different countries and it'll be made here if it works out. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, why not?
Neat. I like, there's like for first aid kits, you can get an instant cold pack, instant heat pack, all that stuff. There's this.
Yeah.
So, and I think pretty much all of it is just a chemical mixture kind of thing. This gets with that. And when you put this on this, it gets cold. When you put this on this, it gets hot. When you put this on this, it catches fire. So don't do that. So, those kind of things. But, they have meals that you can get that they cook themselves, basically. It's got a little heat pack on there. And I don't think they get like boiling hot, but it warms it up. So if you're out camping somewhere and you're stuck out and it's cold and you don't have any way to get a hot meal, you can get at least a lukewarm meal in there. So, the technology seems like it would be good. I have a self-heating coffee mug. Now, mine requires recharging to do that because I like my coffee to stay at about like 210 degrees at all times.
Oh, yeah. So, you like it hot.
I do like hot coffee. If I take the first sip and physically burn myself, I'm like, that's perfect. That's perfect. So.
They do say the ideal drinking temperature for coffee is about 145 to 150 degrees, I believe.
Okay.
Which is a lot cooler than what you like, but that's about where I start liking it. Anything beyond that, the heat overwhelms my ability to perceive the flavor. But if you like burning yourself and you do have a history of burning yourself for recreational purposes or whatever, I don't even know, then yeah, that's fine.
Now, you talking me burning myself, Brian. Who in this group, how many of us in the group have set my garage on fire?
That's a fair point. I don't know. I have not been there the entire time you've been there, so I don't know what you've done. I've not been there, but
I'm going to tell the story next week. I'll tell you what was involved. Tea lights, a terracotta coffee pot, and a piece of fried chicken.
Oh, you've talked about this, yeah.
So there we go.
That's magic right there.
There we go.
The secret recipe.
The secret recipe. Brian's terracotta chicken.
That's right. Don't give it away.
Yeah, man. So cooling beer cans, that would be neat. I see it as something, I'm going to be honest, neat, but I don't see it being something that would ever become like a practical marketing thing. Now, maybe rather than being a beer can, is it a one-time use thing, Brian? Did you say that? It sounds like it probably is if he's talking about stuff being released.
I think so, because if it's a chemical reaction, it wasn't specifically said in the article, and I looked for that. I'm fairly certain it probably is. Once the water is released into the chemical solution, it's going to do whatever it does.
And it'll run its course and be done. Yeah. Because I was thinking if they could make a koozie that was reusable and did that. And I know, like, they sell these little desktop refrigerators that you can put like 6 cans of soda in or something, and they use thermoelectric cooling, rather than like a compressor generated thing. But I found out, one, they don't work very well, and two, they're horribly, horribly inefficient. Like they in order to get anything done. But if they can improve that kind of tech and like put a little plate in the bottom of a koozie that cools your beer, that would be nice. Kind of like my little coffee mug there that keeps it. And I joke about the temperature. The maximum temperature I can go on my coffee mug is 145. That's as high as
I'll got it. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be cool.
There is a way, and you can buy. They're not very good devices, but you can buy them on Amazon. But you can chill beer pretty reliably in 2 to 3 minutes. They have ones that actually attach to the bottom of it, and you spin it in like a cylinder of ice. And if you do that with a beer, you can actually lay beer down in ice. And if you rotate it yourself over the course of about 3 minutes, if you can handle it, it will get cold. You can actually have 2 or 3 minutes. You can have a cold beer if you are willing to manually turn the beer over ice. You don't even need water.
I don't think manually, Brian, didn't we have a little doohickey at the studio for a while that you could put a single can in and it actually had rollers that would rotate it? Or did we just look at it on Amazon? I know it's available, but did we never get one
on Amazon? I've had a wine chiller before that the motor in it broke, but that was effective. If you put ice and anything in that, and all it did has a circulating
just spins
in there, it just moved the water around it. It'll chill it. But I have personally put in like in an oblong tray, I put ice in it after seeing somebody do this with an Amazon thing. It worked much faster, but I'm like, let me put a timer on and I'll do this for 4 or 5 minutes manually and see. I chilled a beer in 4 or 5 minutes to a very acceptable drinking temperature. I'm like,
there's so many tricks on
this is easy. This can be done.
Even a cave Brian can do it.
That's right. Even a cave Brian can get this done.
So many tricks like the wet paper towel thing and all of that. Put a wet paper towel around it and put it in the freezer. Things like that.
That's pretty effective too. Yeah.
That works. I have some for my cooler. I've got these ice packs that I've got some that are like hard plastic. And then I have others that kind of look like little thin sheets, like cubes, but they're flatter and they're kind of pseudo flexible. But I've taken before and like put a rubber band around one and threw it on a can like, hey, I'm going to put these in the cooler, but I want a couple of these to get cold faster. So I make sure that little wraparound thing is full contact with the beer can. And I don't think it does it. If you just set them there, I don't think I get it in like 4 minutes or that, but 10 or 15 minutes, I'll have a cold beer doing it like that.
Yeah, if you could keep the beer from foaming up, you could put it in a giant ice shaker like they shake the cocktails to chill them. But that's
not going to work, Brian.
Yeah, it's all about the motion. If you can actually get cold liquid to pass around the outside of a can, you can get something chilled really fast. So
chilling.
I'm surprised that spinning a can didn't cause it to explode. But apparently, spinning is not as bad as
I think it's low speed spinning though. I don't think you do it like power drill speeds. So. And I'm not even sure that would do a thing if it's, once you get the motion going. I don't know. I don't know my science that well, Brian.
There's science behind it, yes.
Moving along, Brian, to another story. We're going to go on to comparing some favorite beers here. So it seems that there has been a study done by generation, and each generation has its favorites. What do we know, Brian? I'm a Gen Xer. You're a Gen Xer, right?
I am. Yeah, Nate, I'm on the tail end of Gen X.
What generation do you fall in?
I'm a millennial.
You are a millennial. Okay, so let's find out what our favorite beers are. I'm curious to find out what mine is.
Yeah, so according to YouGov, they put it all together, and here are some interesting observations I have. There's top 10 for each of the generations. All 3 generations have Heineken in their top 2, so all of these generations really enjoy Heineken. For millennials, it's the number 1 beer. For Gen X and boomers, it's number 2. Gen X and boomers agree on the top 3, Guinness, Heineken, and Corona in that order. So the Gen X and boomers are all about their Guinness first, and then they drink their Heineken, and then they get into Corona. I think that covers all the seasons, honestly. Corona is the 3rd place beer for all 3 generations, which I thought was very interesting. I love data like this. It's just that kind of thing just floats my boat. Guinness, Miller, and Stella Artois are in the top 10 for all 3 generations. I have to say the survey may not be valid because they included White Claw in their rankings, and White Claw is not a beer. And if you say so, I will fight you over it. But that is number 6 for millennials. That's why millennials are they have problems. Boomers have the most unique beers in their top 10. They are the only ones who rank Coors Michelob Light, which I didn't even know was still being made, and Dos Equis in their top 10. Nobody else has those. Budweiser only appears in the millennial top 10, which is interesting. And Blue Moon, which we were talking about earlier, only appears in the Gen X top 10, and Blue Moon is number 9. So interestingly, number 9 is the location of all of the unique beers across all the generations. So millennials, their number 9 is Budweiser. Gen X, their number 9 is Blue Moon. And boomers, their number 9 is Dos Equis. None of those are shared by any of the other generations. So pretty interesting little chart of data that I put together there that I actually stole from, what was it, Visual Capitalist or something like that? I don't even remember where I got that from.
You didn't link it. We'll fix that. We'll making sure to mention where we got this data from. But I think it's interesting, Brian, that for millennials, it's Budweiser, not Bud Light. It is Budweiser.
No, it's heavy.
Bud Heavy, as us Gen Xers call it.
Exactly. Boomers have both Miller and Miller Lite listed in their top 10. So they are very, very into their Millers. So that's interesting. And boomers are the only ones that have Coors listed. Everybody else is like, Coors, what are you talking about? So the silver bullet ends with the people with the silver hair, basically. So
I could be wrong, but I think a lot of like the Mick Light, Miller Lights, and all like the big macro light beers, I think those came out like on when Gen X was kids. Basically,
yes.
So it would have been boomer. They definitely would have been the boomer beers there. So
I did think it was interesting that Corona, Corona Extra, and Corona Lights are all in the top 10 for millennials. I'm like, you guys, you don't need all 3 of them. And
White Claw.
And White Claw.
We're
What is
very
even going
embarrassed
on there?
for you, Nate. We're very embarrassed for your
I
generation.
don't claim that as part of my generation.
Okay, fair enough.
And
Or the
all of
data
those are
suggests
ahead of
otherwise.
Guinness. All of those are ahead of Guinness.
Well, yeah.
Disgusting.
White Claw beat Guinness in best beer competition. What is going on in this world?
Terrible.
And it's slipping.
They need to put tariffs on millennials.
That's right. They do. They do.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for our show this week. Thank you so much for coming here and hanging out with us and enjoying the program, hopefully. If you did, tell a friend. Tell them to tune in. Check us out. Share the show on your social. Tell them what story you liked or something they should check out. If you really, really love us, we would love if you would go to patreon.com/beerguys and support the show. We'll send you some cool swag out there. We'll get you on our Discord server where we chat about beer and chicken and all kinds of stuff. And you can come hang out with us for the after party after the show each week. With that said, we hope that everyone has a fantastic week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.